Coming up on 2020 on ID, a controlling husband who took it all out on his wife.
He had sliced her wedding dress and urinated across it.
Then took out a hit on her, too.
He's not going to stop until he puts a bullet in your sister's head.
Deadly relations. Plus, a boyfriend bearing gifts.
Chocolate, shoes, lingerie.
He wined her, dined her, and then terrorized her with hidden video cameras. And that's just for starters.
He appeared to have money, pretended to have money, and she went for it. She found crazy.
And she says she was going broke as an actor until her best friend made her an offer she couldn't refuse.
She told me that she was the Samsung heiress.
And she had a lot of luggage that needed carting around.
I knew we weren't selling Girl Scout cookies.
The ultimate betrayal. Welcome to 2020 on ID. I'm John Quinones. There are a lot of dangers in life we know how to avoid. The deserted city street, the deal that's too good to be true, the pickpocket and the crowd. But what no one is ever prepared for is betrayal by someone close to you, someone you love and trust. In this hour, stories of betrayal that may make you ask yourself, who can I trust? First, a marriage where one man's obsessive need to be in control takes over his wife's life and then threatens his extended family. And as Elizabeth Vargas first reported in 2013, for this Colorado family, the nightmare still isn't over.
In Colorado, the storms can be brutal. But it's human fury that does the most lasting damage, the kind that leads to betrayal and even murder. Against that kind of storm, not even the most loving family can keep you safe.
I wish I would have done more. I wish I would have said more. I wish I would have spoken up.
It started with a young woman's dream of love. Amara Walter was 26 when she met Chris Wells.
She had just become a flight attendant for United, and I think she was on the rebound, and he said all the right things to her that she had wanted to hear.
Warm and upbeat, Amara took people at face value. Chris was 10 years older, a former weightlifter and Chippendales dancer. To Amara, he seemed romantic, confident, charming. She flew around the country, and the postcards flew between them. She wrote him, "I love you, baby, and I'm so excited about our busy and crazy new life that's ahead of us."
It happened so fast. It was a very short courtship.
They eloped and married in Niagara Falls. Eventually, they settled near Castle Rock, between Denver and the Rockies. Things seemed great. Chris got a good job at a used car dealership financing loans. Amara was surrounded by family. Her sister Melissa and Melissa's husband were nearby. So was Chris's sister, Tammy, who lived in a neighboring town with her daughter Madison and her husband Bob. Amara and Tammy formed an instant bond.
Wasn't like it was my in-law. She was my sister.
They all gathered every other week for Sunday dinner at Amara's house, except for Chris. He was in the family portraits, but he was never really part of the family. Amara's brother-in-law, Ed, didn't like or trust Chris.
He struck me as, a guy who thought a lot of himself. Very big ego. He seemed to like to control the situation, whether in conversation or just interaction with Amara.
Even Chris's sister Tammy felt uncomfortable around him.
Chris was always distant, always in another room working. When he was around us, it was always so intense, almost like he was on something.
But on the surface, life was fine, and the birth of her daughter in 2006 brought Amara joy. Chris was devoted to their child, but with Amara, he became more critical and controlling.
It got to the point where she felt like no matter what she did, it was never good enough. He always would leave sticky notes around the house, all over the cabinets. Do this, pick up this.
Chris began acting strangely. He quit his job at the used car dealership He said he was starting a new business and would disappear for hours, even days, on mysterious trips.
I knew that there was something peculiar going on. He was constantly sniffing. He was constantly on edge. He was always saying that he was working, and it just didn't add up.
Then Amara stumbled onto what Chris was really up to.
It became clear that he was involved in crystal meth and had this double life that he was leading.
It was the last straw for Amara.
She was worried about her safety. She was worried about what he could do. You could sense he was very angry and that it was escalating to a completely different level.
She separated from Chris and with her 6-year-old daughter found a new home with Chris's sister Tammy and her husband Bob.
Bob and I were adamant about her coming to live with us. It wasn't an option to go home because we were worried about her safety.
Everyone knew Chris would take it badly. Her sister Melissa had no idea how badly.
He called and said, I just want to let you know that I packed up everything she has and I left it at the bottom of Tammy and Bob's driveway.
Amara and Melissa drove home to find dozens of garbage bags in the driveway.
All of a sudden, I heard her scream. She was standing there holding her wedding dress. He had sliced her wedding dress and urinated across it and wrote a profanity.
In a violent rage, Chris had destroyed every single thing Amara owned. He even cut up her mascara.
She was left with absolutely nothing. The destruction was like an 8 or 10 hour crystal meth rage.
Amara called the police.
She said, I'm scared. I think he's going to kill me. And the police officer looked at me and he said, he's not going to stop until he puts a bullet in your sister's head. And at that point, I knew what was going to happen.
Amara got a restraining order against Chris, but he ignored it, sending her abusive and threatening texts over and over again, sometimes 50 times in a single hour.
He would start off by calling her all these awful names and just completely belittling her, and then next thing you know, the next text is, oh, I love you, baby, we can work on this.
He was harassing her and would not leave her alone.
She told me flat out, he's gonna kill me. And if he doesn't, he's gonna have someone kill me.
Each time Chris violated the restraining order, Amara contacted the police.
He would get arrested, he would go in with money, and he would bond out. He just felt he was above the law because the law was not keeping him in jail.
In fact, the law was helpless to stop Chris.
We were getting contacted from Amara saying, we're afraid Mr. Wells is going to come kill us. And there was really nothing the police could do.
Chris's sister Tammy and her husband Bob felt threatened as well. Bob slept with a shotgun, and they came up with a plan if they were attacked. They rehearsed how each one of them would exit the house and escape in a different direction.
My mom and my dad had taken her in, and they had helped break his control over her. He wanted to gain control again, and he couldn't do that if we were still there.
Chris Wells was arrested 3 times in 6 months. Then, on February 23, 2011, he was arrested again. This time, he did something unusual. Instead of calling a friend to bail him out, he spent the night behind bars.
We all kind of had a full sense of security that night because Chris was in jail. I was out of town on business, and I was talking to Bob on the phone. He said to me, things are getting bad, and I have this feeling that we need to take some much bigger steps and measures to protect ourselves. It was just a day too late.
Amara Wells has left her troubled marriage and moved out of the house she once shared with her husband, Chris. And she's taken her 6-year-old daughter with her. Chris has already sent his wife threatening texts and destroyed her belongings. Now Amara says she's afraid of what he might do to her. And she may not be his only target. Once again, here's Elizabeth Vargas.
I got a phone call from a mutual friend, and she said, Tammy's house is all over the news.
Police confirmed for us within the last hour that 2 people are dead this morning at a Douglas County home.
Right then and there, I knew. I said he did it. He killed her.
I knew immediately. I knew he had killed them.
For months, Tammy and her husband Bob had been sheltering Amara Wells and living in fear that Tammy's brother Chris would attack them. And now, Amara and Bob had been brutally murdered. The police were sure it was Chris. There was only one problem. Chris was in jail.
Obviously, that was going to be our first suspect. To learn that he was in jail stopped us cold. We told him that, there had been some deaths in his family.
I want to know who did this, and I think you can help me. I don't have any idea. Why would I have any idea? Who would do this?
Of course, I mean, there are some family members that'll point to me.
He would start exaggerating being upset.
No.
Shaking his head and almost screaming and acting out.
This can't be happening. This can't be true.
But then the next second, he'd be calm.
Should I have my attorney here? Is these going to be attorney kind of questions?
It was an act. It was a complete and utter act.
The police start where Chris used to work. You don't expect to find what detectives will ultimately discover. 4 used car salesmen moonlighting at murder. The first one they interview is Micah Woody, son of a well-known local pastor.
Said or done anything that would suggest that he really disliked his wife?
Yeah, he would say, I hate her and that she's keeping my kid from me.
What about something like, I'm going to have that killed or...
No, he's never said that to me, actually.
At the crime scene, the police are looking at the evidence, and it speaks volumes to them.
It was very obvious that there had been a very large fight. Somebody had been pushed or shoved through, part of the drywall.
Returning to the car lot, the police notice that one of the salesmen, 26-year-old Josiah Scher, has cuts and bruises on his face. He's the father of several children and working on commission.
We knew that he had been in the military, clean-cut, well-mannered, very likable person.
They arrest him the next day.
Josiah, sir, you're right, you made something.
The police don't have enough to make the charges stick, but they're not telling that to Josiah.
So I'm already arrested for murder.
Oh, yeah. Done deal.
Can I ask you how?
How what?
How me so quick?
You can ask, but I'm not going to tell you.
It turns out Chris Wells was willing to pay to have his wife and his sister killed. He asked Micah Woody, his co-worker, to set it up. All Micah had to do was look across the used car lot to find Josiah. You wouldn't think a used car dealership would be so full of human evil. Or maybe you would.
What did Micah exactly tell you?
Chris Wells was offering my son to kill his wife.
Josiah Scher needed money. He had a child on the way. So the idea of getting real fast money is what drove Scher to commit these murders.
Josiah got a friend to help him, and on a cold January night, the 2 men drove to Tammy's house. They parked outside and got high on cocaine and speed to get up their nerve. Josiah sneaked inside and looked for his targets: Chris's wife, Amara, Chris's sister, Tammy, and Tammy's husband, Bob. The price for each one of those human lives, $5,000. He'd been told the most important thing was to kill Amara. He went to her bedroom first. She ran towards the stairs, and he shot her in the back.
Josiah heard a noise. That noise would have been Mr. Bob Rafferty. There was a huge fight. There were pieces of teeth laying around on the floor, indicating just a huge struggle.
Bob had a shotgun, but he missed. He kept fighting until Josiah shot him. Watching it all was Amara's 6-year-old daughter. Later, Tammy thought that Bob fought on to save the child.
One of the most beautiful things that we heard shortly after was from the sheriff, who said Bob was an incredible hero that night, that he fought with everything he had.
It was Bob's struggle that allowed Amara's daughter to get away from the killer. She was terrified, but she remembered the escape drills the family had practiced. Her presence of mind saved her life that night.
I have never seen a child go through such trauma and be so strong. That little girl is absolutely nothing more than amazing.
In the end, Chris's wife and brother-in-law lay dead. His sister was spared only because she was out of town.
How much money were you supposed to get?
$13,000.
What happened with that?
The life was empty.
Oh, so to kill the other female there, it would have been an extra $5.
To spare Amara's daughter the trauma of testifying in court, the family decided to let Chris plead guilty and avoid the death penalty. In return, Chris had one condition. He wanted to tape a message to his daughter in a bizarre videotape.
Hi, it's Daddy. I'm filming this from jail. I can't tell you.
Put together a very short, cold videotape, basically, that he wouldn't be able to see her anymore, and that, oddly enough, that, you know, she should be a good girl and stay out of trouble and not do bad things.
Be respectful to all adults and try never to be mean to other kids. Always be a good girl.
He never apologized. It was as if he really doesn't even think he did anything wrong.
No emotion.
None.
He's without a soul. You know, you look at what he was able to do. He knew his daughter was in the house. He knew that war was going to be raged in that house, and she was there.
Chris got life in prison without parole, along with his co-worker at the used car lot, Josiah Scher. But even from behind bars, Chris Wells is a threat. Tammy says she's discovered that her brother's receiving money every month in prison, money she believes he earned from his drug dealing.
Christopher Wells is still dangerous. He's a man that can find desperate people like Josiah Scher to carry out his acts.
Amara Wells tried to escape Chris's control, and Bob helped her do it. Now they're both dead. Tammy defied her brother too. Today, she lives in fear.
I know what Chris does when he has access to money. His job isn't done. I think he wants to come after me because I wasn't home that night.
I think it is possible that Chris Wells may try to have somebody else threaten, scare, or maybe even harm, his family. I think Chris Wells is the type of person who won't stop.
As of 2013, Chris Wells and Josiah Scher remain in prison. Wells continues to receive money while incarcerated. Coming up next, a jealous man and a romance that turns dark.
He started sending message to all my friends saying that I had STDs.
And then he went even further.
It's the worst thing that a woman can ever go through.
When we come back. A woman meets a man while traveling. He's affectionate, apparently wealthy. He showers her with gifts. It seems like a romantic fantasy come true. But for Sarita Hicks, the man of her dreams would turn out to be anything but. And as David Muir first reported in 2013, the methods he used to torment her were mean and modern.
It all started with what seemed to be a fairy tale flight. A young mother who thought she was lucky to meet the charming man seated right next to her.
You met him on a flight?
I met him on a flight from Boston to Washington, D.C.
You hear about people meeting on planes all the time.
It's fun,
So fun, it seemed an unexpected romance was about to take off, too.
He seemed like a really nice person. He travels, and I travel too, so that was part of our conversation. So it went really well. It was almost 2 hours of conversation that we had. I mean, it's about 2 hours, Boston, yeah, around there.
You talked the whole time?
Yeah.
And when the flight landed, Sarita Hicks says the gentleman beside her, Bruce Diamond, asked for her number.
And I was like, well, okay, why not?
Why not? He told her he was in the D.C. area often on business, and it wasn't long before their first date. In fact, they would go out 3 times before she would even reveal where she lived. And when she did,
he sent you flowers.
Yeah, he wanted that was the reason why he wanted my address. He wanted to send me flowers. Every day was something.
He wasn't just showering her with gifts. This was a downpour.
Chocolate, shoes, lingerie. I will get home and it will be in front of my door.
But it was the next gift that would come with strings attached. But those strings were invisible.
He gave me an iPhone as a gift. The iPhone is where everything started in.
Because authorities believed that iPhone would become Bruce Diamond's most powerful tool to track her. He made sure the GPS, that built-in locator, was turned on.
So he knew where you were at every moment?
Yeah. And of course, I didn't know he was doing that.
Not only was he tracking her, he was studying her, downloading all of her numbers, her friends, her family. He was watching who she was texting, who she was messaging on Facebook. And she says when she told him things were moving too fast, his next move turned dark.
So he took all of the contacts
yes,
the phone.
In the phone.
And began sending them messages.
Messages, yeah. He started sending message to all my friends saying that I had STDs.
And that was just his first message. Authorities say the next one would link all of her friends to a website where he had listed Sarita as an escort.
So your friends open up this message,
and then they're like, "Oh, you got into a new business?" I'm like, "Oh no. This is."
But at first, some of these people in your phone thought you'd become an escort.
Yeah.
How did you feel at that moment?
I think it's the worst thing that a woman can ever go through. I never even went to those sites. I didn't even know they existed.
Sarita is convinced it was her text messages to male friends that set him off.
He saw you communicating with men from your past.
Yes, yeah, they're my friends. They're friends. They'll ask me how I'm doing, and I will reply. And I think that was the beginning. It was jealousy, I think.
Was any of it romantic?
No.
But he thought it was.
Yes.
And when she wouldn't take him back?
He's like, and everybody will know you as a prostitute, and I'll make sure that your family, your friends, your coworker, everybody know. I'll make sure that they know.
That was the threat.
That was the threat.
And authorities say he delivered on that threat, posting more profiles of her online.
With my office number. And he put in there that I provide service from my branch because it was a bank.
So you had men calling you at the bank?
At the bank. Yes. They wanted me to have sex with them.
She lost her job and lost her identity too. Because when she went online herself, she discovered who she'd become in everyone else's eyes.
I thought it was the end of my world. I thought that everything I worked for was gone.
Authorities say he would find other ways to terrorize her too.
Cancel my water, he canceled my heat, he canceled my electricity.
Why was he doing this?
He wanted me to call him and say, help me.
Instead, she was pleading help me to police. Just as authorities say, Bruce Diamond was about to deliver his biggest blow yet, posting a sex tape she had no idea even existed.
He secretly recorded the two of you having sex.
Yes, and I don't even know how he took that video.
And then he posted that online.
Yes, he posted online, yes.
And sent it to everyone.
Everyone, my phone list, Facebook, my friends, everyone, my coworkers.
Your coworkers.
My coworkers.
The first time you saw that video, What went through your mind?
I had to click into it because I couldn't believe it was me. So I'm like, no, he did not do this. I couldn't believe it. I was like, how dirty can you be? You're sending this to my family, to my daughter, to my kids, to my kids' friends. I couldn't believe it, but I was living it.
And her daughter was about to be living it too, because authorities say not only was Saraida's name and number listed, he would soon list her daughter's name too.
At that moment, I wanted to kill him.
At all hours of the day and night, strangers now showing up at their front door.
Your daughter would be home
Yeah.
when these men would show up at the house.
Yes, soliciting sex, correct.
How do you even react?
I thought I lost everything that I had built up for myself and my daughter. It's terrible.
My mom didn't want me to know.
Saraida's teenage daughter Pam was about to learn what her mother had been trying to protect her from. While getting ready for school in the morning, men, perfect strangers, showing up.
It's like 7-something or 6, and I'm getting ready, and I'm like, Mom, someone's knocking at the door. And my mom's like, do not ever answer the door anymore. I don't want you looking through the hole or anything.
And just like her mother, Pam's list of friends would not be safe either.
He started texting your friends, pretending he was your mother.
Yes, he did. That's what he did.
And everyone at school started to hear.
Yeah, everyone thought my mom was a porn star.
I think that was the tipping point.
Arlington County Detective Angela Comer was the lead investigator.
That's when we knew he was willing to go to great lengths to continue to terrorize his family. We hear about harassment, and we hear about relationships that go bad, and we hear about, boyfriends and girlfriends that are not happy with each other at the end. But I never investigated a case where a person went to such lengths to harass and to terrorize a person.
He came to my apartment with a knife and slashed all my tires. And he showed me the knife, like he was gonna kill me.
She filed for restraining orders and got them.
They actually thought that he was going to kill me.
We were convinced she was in danger. He just wouldn't stop.
And one evening, just after nightfall, authorities say instead of flying to D.C., Bruce Diamond drove this time, all the way from his small-town New Hampshire home to Saraida's apartment.
I was just getting in my door.
He was waiting in the parking lot. He began slashing her tires. This time, police were waiting.
He was caught in the act, and he was arrested that night.
Arrested, Bruce Diamond would plead guilty to identity theft, extortion, and stalking. But it would turn out he had one more surprise for Saraida.
My name is Kathleen Steinman, and I've been married to Bruce Diamond for 22 years.
When we come back, what did the wife know? Plus her own message to Saraida, and what she says her husband was about to do to her, too. Bruce Diamond terrorized Saraida, posting fake profiles of her on escort websites, and worse, posting a sex tape of the two of them. To this day, she says she has no idea how he recorded them. She never saw a tiny camera in the room or a phone propped up in the corner to capture them.
I had no idea he had ever taken this. And he forwarded this to over 3,000 people.
And this was video of the two of you?
Of me and him having sex, yes.
And that video spread faster than she could have imagined. Multiple porn sites. But what was worse was the family and the friends who authorities say were sent links to it by the man Saraida met on that plane.
Could you believe this was happening to you?
No, I didn't believe. I kind of put in my head that it was just a nightmare, that it was not true.
But it was.
But it was.
And there was that one last surprise for Saraida.
Apparently he was married.
Have you met the wife?
No.
Nor had we until 2020 sat down with Bruce Diamond's wife of 22 years, Mrs. Kathleen Steinman.
He had been weaving quite a web of lies and deceit with me for many, many months. That was the betrayal and was the thing that hurt the most.
She and her husband have a 13-year-old son. She's a school librarian, now a single mom, raising that son all alone back in their idyllic small New Hampshire town. Authorities have been watching her husband across 2 states, and she is talking about the case now because she says no one has paid any attention to the terror he inflicted on his own family.
I think throughout this whole thing, it really has never been apparent that Bruce had a family. There was never any indication that he was a married man with a child, and we're victims too.
Kathleen Steinman says during those months she had no idea what her husband Bruce was doing on those business trips to Washington, D.C., his time spent in Arlington, Virginia, nor did she know what was about to unfold on that fateful night that authorities were waiting for him.
Bruce didn't come home. He said he was going on an appointment in Massachusetts and that he might stop at his mother's house.
He left that night in his car and would drive more than 8 hours all the way from their New Hampshire town to Sarita's apartment outside Washington. And as the case unfolded, his longtime wife was horrified.
The things he did to her took hours and hours of plotting and planning and very devious, very ugly. And when you involve somebody's child, I mean, it's the lowest thing you can do. It's just despicable.
After learning of her husband's arrest and betrayal, Kathleen demanded a divorce. And that's when she says he began using some of the same tricks to terrorize her, too.
He shut off the utilities going into our house. He took over anything he could online, my Facebook account, eBay, PayPal, anything he could get a hold of. I thought I was safe because he was in prison. I didn't think he would be capable of really doing anything during that time.
And she would soon be left with yet another unwanted surprise. $50,000 in bills for all of those trips and all of those gifts left at Sarita's front door. The flowers, the chocolates, the lingerie. When she realized that, even her friends were asking this.
When was the last time you spent $50,000 on you? I just can't imagine. I don't know what would be going through his mind to spend that kind of money on someone he had just met to as a virtual stranger.
A stranger who fell for him on that flight.
I think he appeared to have money, pretended to have money, and she went for it, and she found crazy.
Are you still afraid?
I think that I'm afraid that he's going to pay someone to kill me.
What has he done to your life?
He destroyed part of me. Like, I will never see men the same.
A daughter now watching her mother trying to rebuild their lives.
He was using that technology to destroy a person's life.
He was destroying your life.
He did. The video was my mom, so everyone was convinced that it was my mom.
When you see her fighting this, what do you think?
You just can't give up. Like, my mom didn't give up, and I'm so proud of her, and I love her so much.
And when her mother, who had been listening to the interview, heard that nightmare finally over.
I love you, Mom.
All of it after that very first flight when it seemed love was in the air.
Will you ever look at people on the plane the same way again?
I will never give them my number again, that's for sure. I learned my lesson.
It all began with that number.
Yes.
As part of a plea deal, Bruce Steinman was given a 7-year sentence for identity theft, attempted extortion, and stalking. His appeal was denied. As of 2013, Sarita Hicks says she and her daughter are still struggling with the after effects of the harassment. Kathleen Steinman, meanwhile, reports that Bruce has made no contact with her or their son since his imprisonment. When we come back, she was a struggling actress until her new best friend gave her a dream job.
She just said, I'll pay you in cash, and congratulations, you pretty much just won the lottery.
And all she had to do was carry some suitcases.
I knew we weren't selling Girl Scout cookies.
Stay with us. Hollywood is a tough town to be alone in, especially if you're one of the thousands of pretty, ambitious young women trying to get their big break. So Miley Katie was thrilled when she made a new best friend. She was rich and generous. It seemed almost too good to be true. That's because it was. As Elizabeth Vargas first reported in 2013, sometimes you can't even trust your best friend.
The glitz, the glamour, where stars are born every day.
Grew up watching the actors on Friends, and I wanted to do what they were doing.
Fresh out of high school, Miley Katie, yes, that's her, a brunette then, wanted it badly. She left her small town of Bremerton, Washington with little money and big dreams.
You know, there's a cycle of just spending a lot of money on acting classes. There's headshots. It's difficult.
How quickly did you burn through what little money you brought here?
Probably 6 months.
Wow. And you were lonely.
I was.
Forget Ross and Rachel, Miley needed real friends. Someone in her acting class introduced her to this girl, Lizette Lee, who seemed to have it all.
So when you first met Lizette, tell me how she struck you.
She's very confident. She sort of has she was very well put together. And she just sort of had a certainty in everything she did. Whether
She owned
it was,
a room.
Yes.
So
yeah.
what did she tell you about herself?
She told me that she was the Samsung heiress.
And did she appear to have the wealth and trappings of the heiress to the Samsung fortune?
She looks the part, she acts the part. She always seemed to have a lot of money. She had a Mercedes, she drove Bentleys.
She ran with the crowd befitting an heiress.
She said that she went to school with Paris Hilton and Kim Kardashian, and she said that she dated Leonardo DiCaprio and Channing Tatum.
She's got good taste.
And that's not all.
She was an Asian pop star.
An Asian pop star?
Yeah.
Songs on the radio?
Yeah, she said she had number one songs in Korea.
Why do you think the heiress to the Samsung fortune would be hanging out with you?
She said she was looking for someone who wasn't jaded by the town.
And naive.
Yeah.
But that naive newcomer and the sophisticated socialite hit it off.
We sort of had our own private world. We would just hang out at her place and have drinks and stay up late and talk. She was someone that was one of the really bright spots in my life when not everything was always that great.
Miley did land some parts, bit parts.
What's the weeps about, dollface?
My life is a wreck.
Including this under-the-table classy cameo. But she was far from making it and was barely scraping by when she says Lizette came to her with a job offer.
She said, I want to hire you as my executive personal assistant. She just said, I'll pay you in cash and you'll be working for your best friend, and congratulations, you pretty much just won the lottery.
That jackpot job? Fly with Lizette on fancy private jets, moving heavy suitcases from Los Angeles to a seedy hotel room in Columbus, Ohio. But what was in the suitcases? And why Columbus, Ohio? Miley didn't ask. She says that was part of the deal. No questions.
It is difficult to understand why alarm bells didn't go off.
I trusted her. We had 4 years of a very close friendship.
What did you think was in the suitcases?
Probably money. She said that her family was very involved in some casino business. To be honest, I knew we weren't selling Girl Scout cookies.
If lugging mysterious suitcases was bizarre, Miley's other task was downright shady. Wiring money, a lot of it, $40,000 through Miley's own personal bank account, all to pay for those lavish private jets.
Why would she ask you to put that money in your personal checking account?
That was something that I was very uncomfortable about. She said, you know what? Your job is so easy. I don't know what you're complaining about. If you want, I would be more than happy to throw a stick down Sunset Boulevard and hit some other dumb broad who would do it for half the money.
Miley was in deep. She wanted a life in the fast lane, and now she had it. The money was intoxicating, but she was about to discover that she had made a deal with the devil in the City of Angels.
It smelled like pot on the plane. After we landed, I'd walked in on a conversation that she was having, and she said, we need to do something about that smell. This is very dangerous, and we can't act like amateurs.
Miley, that once innocent aspiring actress from Washington State, was a drug trafficker.
I know it might sound hard to believe, but I didn't have that conversation with Lizette that would go something like, when were you going to tell me that we're smuggling drugs? This is illegal.
So why didn't you say those things to Lizette?
I was very afraid. We were drug dealers, and we were dealing with other drug dealers.
Believe it or not, Miley kept working. kept going on those drug runs. Little did she know her BFF was about to land her a date with the DEA.
They were making these flights frequently. They always had a lot of baggage with them, but they always gave a different reason why they were flying to Columbus. All inconsistent if it was just an innocent flight.
June 14th, 2010. As Miley and Lizette flew across state lines, DEA agents began preparing for their arrival.
We were observing. Once everyone was loaded up, our surveillance units moved in to stop them.
I looked up and I saw 30 or so DEA agents, and I looked to my right, and there was a machine gun aimed at my face.
Wow.
They brought drug dogs out.
The drug dog alerted to the presence of the odor of narcotics. At that point, we had reason and sufficient probable cause to search the vehicles.
The jig was up. Investigators discovered a jaw-dropping 500 pounds of marijuana. That's a lot of suitcases. Over the next few months, law enforcement learned more, that all those trips, many involving Miley, moved more than 7,000 pounds of marijuana, worth more than $3 million. And Miley says she finally realized her faux friend had also been playing a role the whole time.
That is when things started to unravel.
She's been lying about everything.
A lot of things.
Lizette's age, her relationships with stars, her private school background, that pop star career. Miley says so much of what Lizette told her over the last 5 years were lies. As for that Samsung connection, the company denies any relation to Lizette Lee.
Did you feel gullible?
I felt like an idiot. I mean, I was completely duped. She lied about everything.
Everything.
Everything. And I was looking at 5 to 40 years in prison.
Lizette and Miley both pled guilty to conspiracy to distribute marijuana. Lizette is serving a 6-year sentence in a federal prison, but Miley, who cooperated with authorities, only had to serve 1 month, followed by a year of house arrest.
It's changed my life permanently. Drug trafficker, convicted felon, former inmate.
But as we've seen over and over and over, the mugshot can be the new headshot. The ankle bracelet, the newest Hollywood accessory. Miley even blogged about it on her website, housearrestgirl.com. And now it's being turned into a book, and Paramount Pictures is making it into a movie. Maybe Miley isn't so naive after all.